Good morning, YouTube family, friends. Rev it up, Car Fanatic Productions. Let me show you what I'm working with quickly. It's a 2012 Ford Edge Limited two-wheel drive, 3.5 liter V6. It's my wife's boss's vehicle. Came in needing front rotors and brakes and rear brakes. The front rotors were just grounded down. The front brakes were grounded down to the metal, and the pedal was sinking to the floor. So that's what I got. So we put new brake rotors and brake shoes in the front. We put rear brake pads in the back. So I say shoes, rotors, and pads in the front and pads in the rear. And we just bled the brakes, and we bled it real good, and she still went down to the floor. So then I checked out the master cylinder, and that's when I noticed the master cylinder, the bushings inside the master cylinder were bad, and it was leaking air into it. You could hear the air when you hit the brake pedal. So we put a new master cylinder on it, and then we bench bled the master cylinder, and we brought it back out, put it on the car, and we bled all four wheels again. And we had good brake pressure with the car off, but when you turn the car on, the pedal sink to the floor again. So I shined the flashlight down in there, and I noticed it had a pinhole in the back of the master reservoir brake, the brake reservoir. So you can't get a reservoir at a used part or at a parts place. Ford didn't release the patent on it. So I was lucky enough to find one in pick and pull. So again, I had to take the master cylinder out, and I had to put it on the bench. I had to bench bleed it, put it back inside the car, and we had to bleed all four brakes again, and still the pedal went down to the floor. I tried everything in my knowledge arsenal that I knew, at least I thought. I took it to a dirt road. I thought maybe the ABS module had some dirt or something was binding up in it. So you take it to a dirt road and you do 25 miles an hour, slam on the brakes, make the anti-brake lock come on. I thought that would bring the brake pedal up. Put it in reverse, do the same thing, and slam on the brakes, let the ABS do it work. That didn't work. So I came back, and I did notice that at the back of the master cylinder again, it was leaking down the back of the master cylinder. So it was a very small leak. So we got another master cylinder. Bench bleed again, bled all four brakes, and again, brakes went down to the floor. So then I tried another bleeding method. I put the emergency brakes down in the rear while I bled the rear brakes, and I heard that helped push the fluid in there, and I still had no brake pressure. So then I thought about the ABS module, that there may be air in the ABS system. So in order to get the air out of that, you would have to take it to a shop, or if you're like me, you have one of those expensive scan tools that have the Alltel 808 MK. And so I used that to bleed the master cylinder. And once I bled the master cylinder, I got good brake pressure. So all the brake pressure is there. But again, I got a leaky master cylinder in the back. It's very little leak. So these master cylinders ain't worth 10 cents. It's not what you call it, the parts that you get from Ford. It's not a Motorcraft, but it's one of the ones that comes from AutoZone. So that's supposed to arrive here today, and we're going to swap it out. So at least I got to the root of the problem, is getting the air out of the ABS system, because they was riding this vehicle around so long with the brakes so low, and I really had a hard time with the right front brake. The rotor was stuck on, and the sliding pin was frozen, and I got it unfrozen. There was several of them in the back that were frozen, and I had to put it in the bench and the vise, and I had to wire wheel it nice and clean, and I lubed them all up and got everything free on that. So my part should be in shortly. So what I did is I took the breather off. You can see it off from there, and took it off the breather hose. All you do is this little clamp. You push that forward and pull that breather off, which I got sitting right over there. And then there's a bolt here and a bolt here and a bolt here, and then you just pull up on this right here. Just a couple of grommets that hold it in place. Kind of hard to do things with one hand. There you go. I got it out of the grommet. And this is just to help get the battery out. It's easier to get the battery out without having this stuff in the way. And so the battery, you always want to loosen the negative side, the positive side first, then the negative side. And then there's the right there, the battery hold down clamp. Then next thing we're going to do, we're going to take the battery tray out. There's a bolt right there, and then there's a nut, and then there's another bolt, and then the battery tray, and there's a wire with a push pin that attached to this tray. You want to get all this out of the way so you can have access to the two bolts on the master that goes to the master cylinder into the back of the brake booster. So let me get that done. FYI, the bolts that take the air breather off, or the socket, is a 10 millimeter. The bolt that gets the battery off is a 10 millimeter. The bolt that gets this off is going to be I believe it's a 8 millimeter. Let me verify that. Or a 9 millimeter. Now it's going to be an 8 millimeter that's going to get that off. And I believe, yeah, I have that 8 millimeter right here. So this 8 millimeter gets that bolt loose right there. And that's the battery hold down clamp. And it's got a little rubber grommet right here that holds the battery together. So this is a 10 millimeter and that's a 10 millimeter. And then the bolts in the back to get the reservoir loose is the cylinder, master cylinder loose, is a 1/2 inch. And then the brake lines are 5/8 line wrench is what you need to get those loose. And like I said, the battery tray, 10 millimeter bolts. Let me get my 10 millimeter on here. I like power tools. And this is the bolt. That's a 10 millimeter bolt. This is 10 millimeter nut. Then you got one 10 millimeter nut on the side. And I leave everything right in that pin. And you got to lift this pan up. There's the grommet that I told you that was on the top of that. Let's see if we can pull this out by hand. Yeah, we can. And we did. And then you take that above the top of that. And then you just wiggle this right out of place. And then we slide this down over here. Now, let me get a flashlight here and show you. It's not that bad of a leak, but it's a leak. Let me see if I can zoom in here. And right there, see those wet spots? The master cylinder is leaking, coming down from behind the master cylinder there. So it's, you can see those wet lines there. There's the angle right there. You can see those wet lines. There it is, right there, coming down. It's not much, but it's still enough. When you pay for something, you want your money's worth. So now your ABS is right there. That's the ABS module right there. And air was in those lines, and the only way to get those out is you have to have a scan tool that can have a bleeder where you can bleed the ABS module. So I really don't think I have to bleed the ABS module now, since I already bled it once. So I think I can get away with just changing these master cylinder, bench bleeding it, and then putting it back on and bleeding all 4 brakes. If we got good brake pressure, then we won't need to bleed the master cylinder, but I mean the ABS module. But if so, we have to bleed it. It's no problem. Process takes about all of maybe 5 minutes to do, and it's very effective. So right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my 5/8 line wrench, and I'm just going to loosen those bolts right there, and then just snug them back up just a little bit, and then I can take the bolts from out of the back of the master cylinder, and I can get that ready, and I can take off that brake light switch. I mean the brake level switch. If you don't have enough brake fluid in there, that's the sensor right there that will turn the light on, letting you know that you low on brake fluid. So let me show you guys what a line wrench looks like, just in case you don't know. And this will be a 5/8 line wrench. And I should have it here. Maybe I put it back in the kit. Okay, let me go over to my kit where I keep my line wrenches at and open it up. There's my vice grips. This is where I'm going to do my bench bleeding. But this is where I keep my line wrenches. In this little doodad right here. So I want a 5/8 line wrench. 9/16. And here it is. 5/8 and 11/16. So I want my 5/8 line wrench. And that's what a line wrench looks like. It goes directly over that bolt, so you can't strip it. Because if you try to use a regular box end wrench, there's too much opening and you can end up stripping them. Sometimes these lines are on kind of tight. So I want to go back in here and go down on it. Now I got it loose, and then I just want to tighten it just a little bit so it doesn't leak. And then I want to go on the back one and do the same thing. Just want to get it on there. This hose is in my way here, the breather. This little vacuum hose that goes into the air cleaner kind of in my way. Got to kind of maneuver this stuff to get out of your way here, so I can get a good line wrench on here to get this off. There we go. Now we'll push it down. Okay, we got it. Now we'll just gently snug it back so it doesn't leak. Now it's gently snug. Now what I'll do is I'm going to take my 3/8 my 1/2" wrench, or should I say my 1/2" sockets, and let's zoom in. Let's see. There's a bolt right there, and then the other bolt is right there. I hope you can see that. And those are the 2 bolts that I can loosen and take all the way out. But first, I want to take that right there off. What I do, the brake light sensor, I put my hand under the bottom of it and pull up on a tab, and I take a screwdriver and put it in the corner like this here, a flathead, put it in the corner. If I can get that flashlight to stay over there, so you can kind of understand what I'm talking about. I put it in the corner right here, and then as I push on the bottom of that pin, I turn, and that pulls that out, and that's how we get that switch out. So my master cylinder is in. So what I like to do is take one line out at a time, and once you get this broken, you can use a 5/8" ratchet if you want. I mean a 5/8" wrench, but I'll just loosen it until I'm able to do it by hand, and I do it one at a time, and pull it out. You get a little bit of leakage, as you see, and then I take these little red pins that come with the set, and I'll cover it like that so it doesn't leak as bad. And then I have these little things that I will put over the top of these lines here to stop that from leaking. Let me get a rag and put a rag down there, and then you just do the back one the same way. Then I'll take a little bungee cord and tie it up there, and I'll hold these up in the air, so gravity forces the fluid to stay down and not leak. And now all I got to do is just take those 2 bolts out of the master cylinder in the back. O-ring fits up over the top of here and slides back into a little groove all the way back in there like that, and that's what seals that back in there. And you want to make sure that seals really well when you put the new one in. So now I'm going to take this back to AutoZone, and we're going to get the other one. So we popped our new master cylinder reservoir on, and we put the old screw, which is right there. Where my hand at? Right there. We put that back in there, and there's the seal back here. And I tightened these up. These are little plastic ones to help bleed it. And the reason I got them down is when I pour fluid in, I want gravity to do its job. And I got a little bucket down here to drip, and that'll fill this up, and it'll get the air out of that. And then it's which time I'll take and I'll stand these up and put them inside and click it to here and keep the fluid between maximum and minimum, so I can pump all the air out of this brake reservoir. So and then you want to take and pump this. You can use your hand, or you can use a screwdriver and pump it, and you'll see the fluid coming out. And when there's no air left in the lines, that means you got all the fluid out. And then what I do, I would loosen these up, and I would turn this sideways with the cap on and take these off, and I put these caps back on, and that way it won't leak much out. A little bit of leaking, it's okay, because gravity fed It's not going to get air in it from it just drain out just a little bit. And then we take it out to the car, and we put our lines on. We get it inside the master cylinder, put those bolts on, and then we get our lines on and we tighten the lines down. And then we go ahead and start the process of bleeding the wheels at all four corners. And you want to start bleeding from the farthest from the ABS. So if your ABS is on the driver's side, you want to do the right rear side first, then the left rear, then the right front, then the left front. If your ABS is on the passenger front, you want to do the left front wheel, then the right front wheel, left front wheel, right front wheel. That's the order you do it in, wherever the ABS system is at. Okay, so we check with a flashlight here, and we don't see no bubbles in the rear or the front. So that means all the air is out of the system. And as you can see, it's topped off. And then we check underneath here to make sure none is leaking from the seals here or underneath there. And the seals are all tight. There's none leaking on that side of the seals, and none leaking around the reservoir. So I think we're pretty good to go. So the bleeding process went very well, the bench bleed, and we got her installed in there. We got the 5/8 line wrenches tight. We got the 2 1/2-inch bolts that go into the back of the brake booster tight, and there's no leaks there. And we got the towel, and we wiped up anything that is around there. So now we're going to do the next easiest thing is we're going to go ahead and put the battery tray back in. We're going to put the battery on. Then we're going to go ahead and put the air intake tube with the air filter housing, and it goes over to the throttle body, and connect the vacuum line here and connect that vacuum line there. Once we get all that together, then we're going to go around and start bleeding the brakes. So I got everything hooked back up. I got the breather hooked up, the intake, that to the throttle body, got the battery back on, mass airflow sensor, got this vacuum line from the brake booster and the one underneath clipped. And now we just want to look at the reservoir. It's pretty much at the top, so we'll start from there. And since I got the vehicle up on jacks, it's not going nowhere in the rear. I got the outside tire turned out because I'm going to start with the left rear, right rear, left front, and then I'm going to turn the wheel the other way, and I'm going to get the right front and bleed them. Hopefully this will take care of it, and we won't have to do no ABS bleeding. So here's me doing the ABS bleed. You hit service, you want to do brake bleed, and then you go to your VIN. It does the automatic VIN, and then you just follow the prompts. Ford USA, hit accept. Now it's giving you the VIN. You click. It's decoding the VIN information. My 2012. There it is. Yes. So it's talking to the ECM and loading the data. Okay, then you want to go to hot functions, analog brake service bleed. Now there you read all the conditions, and so you got to put the parking brake on, and make sure the battery is greater than 10%. So we hit OK, switch the engine on, OK. OK, apply the parking brake, depress and hold the pedal. So I'm holding the pedal and I hit OK. Now you're going to hear a bunch of noise. There it goes. Take the foot off pedal, press continue. Now you hear more noise. Okay, depress the brake and hold the brake, press OK. So it's releasing, getting more air out of the system. And it's going to go through that ABS noise again. Okay, release brake pedal, press OK, and you hear more noise. Press and hold the pedal again, press OK. And it pushes out the air again. Release the brake pedal, press to continue, and you hear it again. It's successful. Switch the ignition off. After this procedure, perform manual bleeding. Refer to the workshop. And we go OK. And then we exit the system. This is my one-man bleeder. And as you go uphill, the bubble will not be able to go back down. So I'm going to go inside, pump the brakes about a good 7 times, nice and easy. And this fluid going to come into this bottle. I probably want to get it up to about right there, and if I see any bubbles, I'll close the line off. And you want to put the emergency brake on as well when you do this, and pump the brakes up, and then when all the fluid, all the bubbles are out, you're good to go. You move to the next. So that was a good 7 pumps, and you can still see that there's a little bit of air right there in the line. So I'm going to close the line up. Like you said, you want nice smooth motions. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that should get all the air out of the lines. Let's go back and see if we see any bubbles. If we see any bubbles, then we do it again. And as you can see, that is clear. There's not even no tiny bubbles. So we can lock this up. Okay, I can see just a little bit of bubbles in here. So we're going to top off the fluid again, and we'll come back and we'll bleed this again. So we can see there's no air in the lines here. So this side we can lock down and get ready for the right front. The rear bleeder screws are 7/16. The front is an 8mm. So that's how I got the front set up. Got it sitting up there in the wheel well there, and there's my 8" millimeter, and my little bucket in case something spills. Now we got to check our fluid level again, which is in between half and medium. I mean half and full. So we're gonna go ahead and put it up to the full line. And there it is. And it doesn't take much to bleed the front because they're the closest to the reservoir and the closest to the anti-lock brake system. But anyway, we're gonna give this another pump, and it's feeling good. It's feeling real good. Now we're going to loosen this line up, and we're going to give it a good 5 pumps and see if we get the air out of that side. So there's no air in that line, but we went on ahead and tightened it back up, and we're going to check the fluid level, and we're going to give it about a good 4 more pumps just to make sure. Check the reservoir. Now what we want to do, we're going to check the reservoir again, and we're going to turn the wheel outward so we can get to the valve on this side. That just goes to show you don't need to take all 4 wheels off, just the rear to get to the bleeder valves on the Ford Edge 2011 to 13, or even maybe 2009. It's impossible to get to that bleeder valve back there and get the wrenches off. But the front one, just turn the wheel the way you need to and you can get to it. All right, beautiful. No air in that line at all either. And we got good brakes, so we can go ahead and disconnect this. We got that bleeder valve tight. That's all to it. And she popped right out. So now I noticed the O-ring didn't come out with it, so I'm gonna have to go back to the car and get this O-ring out of here, or else you will have a leak. Let's see, did I lose the O-ring? There it is. It's sitting right there on the inside. Make sure you have that O-ring. We're gonna pump the brakes a little bit. Let's get that emergency brake on. I forgot about that. And we're getting a good stiff pedal already. So now we're gonna go back. We're gonna check the master cylinder. We don't want to run that dry. So we flip the top and it's down to minimum. So take the top off. And we're just going to slide it in there and fill it up to the max. And it's at max. And then put this top back on. Put this cap back on. You're going to go back, open the bleeder valve, and we're going to come back and pump the brakes 5 more times, and that should do it on this side. It's important to check the master cylinder, and again, we're down to about minimum, so we want to add some more. And we just went over max. The 2 rear is going to be the one to take most of the brake fluid, and also the reservoir when you're bleeding it. So now we're going to pump the brakes. We should have some good brake pressure. Yep, it's feeling good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and loosen this valve up and bleed this side. Okay, our master cylinder is right to the maximum, so we're good with that. That's very good. We got very little fluid left. So before I put the rear tires on, but I feel confident that everything is pretty tight and everything that looks pretty good, that we're going to have ourselves some good brakes here. Oh yeah, there's no leaking at the master cylinder back there, which is a good thing. This is the 3rd master cylinder I put on, and right back down in there, can't get a good picture, but I can see it. Let me see, right in there, there's no leaks going down there, so that looks good. So now what we're going to do is turn our wheel straight, and we're going to put our wheel chocks back in front as we put those tires back down and take the jack stands from under there. But let's crank it up, turn those wheels straight, and see if we got some good brake pressure. I'm excited. We did our job right. We got some good brake pressure. And it does not go all the way down to the floor. Oh yeah, we got brakes, ladies and gentlemen. Excellent brakes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's turn this wheel straight. Love it. Oh yeah, they're gonna be happy. Good brakes. Now we head over to the right side, left side, and let me get this all set up.